Lamborghini is catching Ferrari, Express Spares and TC-Matic, Delphi training, Tesla wireless charging, MOT's big delay, sales numbers for Q2, Maximus new dealers, Bilstein Group and Corolla hydrogen racer in Japan. Hello, I'm Paul Callan and welcome to this week's MotorZen News. Volkswagen Group bought out Lamborghini in the late 90s, and since then it's been working its magic, improving the product, improving the sales. 3 years ago Lamborghini sold 7,400 cars. They reckon this year they're on target to sell 10,000 cars. And the interesting thing about this is now they're getting close to the type of sales that Ferrari get. Ferrari got 13,200 sales last year. So Lamborghini is continually eating away at that gap and closing it down to the point where it might actually sell as many cars as Ferrari, which is an incredible achievement on the part of Volkswagen Group. But that's the way they go at things. They plan long and they continually achieve. But also the interesting thing in this area here is part of the game here is to keep the production volumes down in order to keep the demand high, in order to keep the price of the products very high, because you would hear stories of people who are on the Ferrari waiting list who can buy the Ferrari at list price, and the moment to buy it they can flip it at a profit. So it's a very unusual sector that even though Lamborghini is increasing its volumes, it needs to be very careful not to increase them to the point where it affects the values. Express Spares in Athboy. Traditionally, we all know them in Ireland from being the experts on clutches. And, you know, oftentimes when I'm around the country and guys had problems on clutches, I say just talk to the guys in Express Spares, because there's not a problem or an issue that's occurred in a clutch that they don't have an encounter and won't be able to give you an answer on. But they're transitioning because the market is transitioning. So they're working more now around automatic transmissions because the percentage of automatics are continually going up. And the independent sector has to look at this. You're going to have to start to look at automatic transmissions because it's increasing and increasing. And there's a lot of servicing business here for your workshop in this sector, but you're going to have to invest a little bit of money and a little bit of time on training. Express Spares are partnered with a company called TC-Matic. And the interesting thing about this is TC-Matic are a very big European transmission rebuilding company. They're based in Spain, but they have a relationship with all of the transmission brands. And I went to a training evening on this, and what concerns me all the time was if you hit problems with a transmission, where do you get help? Well, in buying the machine, the TC-Matic machine off the guys in Express Spares, you also get the support and the knowledge of the TC-Matic organisation in Spain, which I think is vital in terms of covering your back in the event of problems. They've got a man on the road now doing demos, doing the equipment side of things. David Hoy's the guy. So if you're really serious about looking at this, it's well worth talking to them in this area. Again, in keeping with developing your workshop and being conscious about how to improve your workshop, this is an interesting story. A company called Available Car, they've got 2 used car sites in the UK, one in Donington and one in East Midlands, and they sell 100 cars a week. They have got 90 technicians, and they started to work with Delphi on Delphi's continual development program. And they've started to train with technicians, work with technicians, look at areas where technicians need help and bring on board Delphi's training to help them in certain areas. They've now achieved 6 technicians to master tech level. But the interesting thing, since they've been analysing the data since they've started to work with Delphi, is that there's improved performance, improved efficiency and improved customer satisfaction, and also improved staff retention. And I suppose these are the type of things that you'll only find deployed with the franchise dealers, because they've got all these systems available to them from head office. But this is an example where some of the bigger brands is reaching out to help the independents. Now, this is a big organisation, but I think this type of messaging has to be taken right down to small workshops. We have to start to deploy mechanisms that help us to improve and retain our staff, because that staff issue is huge in the independent sector, and this is an example of how things could help you. Tesla, again, every week we would cover a story on Tesla. Tesla has bought a German company who had developed wireless charging technology. This company had traditionally developed this up in the forklift sector, but have now developed it up that it's very workable in the car sector. The statistics are 90% efficiency on the charge, and you only have to reach 40 millimeter tolerance on your park point outside your door. So again, Tesla buys this company and probably seamlessly adds this product to their product offering. So we're probably going to see now as an option to buying a Tesla, you're going to have an option to have a contactless home charging installed. So again, it's an example of how the whole relationship with the car and the services that's offered to the car is changing. At some point, someone's going to have to go out and do an install on this for Tesla. So this is another example where Tesla is possibly selling a car, but then has to install a device at your home. But again, if you think of the ease now of using a wireless charging system, just park the car up, come out in the morning and the car is fully charged. Again, it's another thing that just says, yeah, each day that passes, the electric thing starts to become a little bit more seamless and a little bit less problematic compared to traditional vehicles. Probably in the last year or two, all the news has been full of the NCT, the national test in the south of Ireland, and the problems in the backlog that's been there. Not hearing so much of that now, and starting to probably free up a little bit. But in the news this week was the MOT situation in Northern Ireland. The waiting times in Northern Ireland on MOT now are, if you want to get a booking now, you're looking at November 23. You're looking at the end of the year before you can get a booking. Okay, the problems in Northern Ireland started before the COVID situation. In January 20, they had 48 out of 55 lifts that were actually deemed to be unusable. And this created a whole issue because they couldn't use the lifts, they couldn't do the tests, they had to renew the lifts, there was a delay time to renew the lifts. And then lo and behold, you hit COVID. So gives you an example of how far back and how many problems they've been experiencing in MOT testing in Northern Ireland. January 19 to 20, they've done 1 million tests. The following year, they've done 200,000 tests. They are really performing well. From September last year to February 23, they've done 506,000 tests. So they are performing well, but it's just that they're not able to get through the backlog. And they're in the news this week more so than the testing in the south. So we're at the end of the second quarter, so we've got the sales figures in. One that jumped out when I was just scanning through some stuff was BMW. BMW is going really well. For the second quarter, they sold worldwide 626,726 cars. That's an 11% increase on last year. But the interesting aspect to this is that they're doing better than any other legacy or traditional OEM in their EV sales. Their EV sales were 88,000 from January to June. That's up 117%, and that's 12.6% of the total. But the idea that you don't really see BMW making that much of a big song and dance about it, but they are really actively converting everything to be battery electric vehicles, and they're starting to really shine in compared to other OEMs, that traditional OEMs that are possibly slower to make the transition. Irish sales figures is, the numbers are in for the end of July, 104,629 cars sold. That's up 19% on last year. And these figures, it's really hard to work out, is that 19% an increase on pent-up demand, i.e. that there was no stock availability last year, and the figures are higher now because cars that would have been bought in 22 have been bought in 23. It's hard to work that out. Toyota's number one seller in Ireland with 14.3, Volkswagen's next with 11.2, Hyundai 10.1, Skoda 8.15, Kia 7.12. Best sellers is Tucson with 4,812, Sportage 3,107, Corolla 2,922, Yaris Crossover 2,847, and ID4 2,586. Really, what's interesting when I look at the Irish numbers, for years and years and years, that number one spot was kind of fought out between Toyota and Ford. And Toyota don't even show up or Ford don't even show up on the top 5. But in the UK, Puma is the number one seller. Puma was the number one seller for the first half of the year, selling 26,899 units. So not showing up in the Irish figures, but yet all number one in the UK figures. Just goes to show that we used to possibly be very much like the UK market, but not anymore. But really questionable as to what's happening with Ford's performance in Ireland, because that Puma, I think, is quite a good product, and it doesn't seem to be getting any market penetration in Ireland. Maxus, the Chinese electric light commercial vehicle range that's imported into the UK and Ireland by Harris Group, they are continually improving their performance, and they have now expanded their dealer network. Kieran Welton in Mayo has gone on as a dealer, and Sheridan Motor Group in Waterford has gone on as a dealer. That's bringing their total, I think, to 12 dealers now. And for the first half of the year, they've increased their sales performance by 33.3% over last year's performance. Continually nipping away at that market, continually winning customers over with increasing their dealer group. Obviously, that's going to help them. And 5-year warranty is also probably a big help with that product range as well. But beginning to see more and more of that product on the road. Ronan Conneely is a guy that supports us on the channel. He always gives us a thumbs up there on LinkedIn. Ronan has just taken up a new position with Bilstein Group as Business Development Manager. And, you know, when you look at Ronan's CV, started with the CD Group and then went to J&S, but also then started to develop himself through education, got a diploma in motor industry management and also got a degree in business studies. And it's a great example of someone who starts at the ground floor in the industry and continually improves themselves until they get up to a position of management like what Ronan is in now. So all credit due to Ronan, and a big shout out there to him. Every couple of weeks we try and bring you an update on the Corolla, internal combustion Corolla, I might add, that's competing in the Japanese Endurance Championship using hydrogen. And they've just been competing on the last race they were on, was the 24-hour Fuji race. They're running on liquid hydrogen. It has to operate at minus 250 degrees centigrade. They figured that they were going to have to replace the pumps twice during the race. Problem is, it was taking them 4 hours to replace the pump. The second time they replaced the pump, they got it down to 3 hours. The issue with these pumps is that you can't lubricate them, because if you lubricate them, you contaminate the hydrogen. So they've got this issue here, probably where they're trying to look at solutions to deal with these pumps when using liquid refrigerant or liquid hydrogen, but not ideal when you're trying to do a 24-hour race, that you lose 4 hours fitting a pump and then 3 hours fitting a pump. But again, it's giving you an example of how much Toyota are trying to work with hydrogen and try and overcome some of the obstacles by going out there into a real world, real races, and really the whole world is watching them as they do this. But that was a bit of a blow for them this time. But we'll bring you an update the next time we get something as to how that. Again, keep reiterating, it's a Corolla racing with an internal combustion engine that's running on hydrogen. That's it for this week, guys. Thanks for watching. Again, our numbers are fairly steady. Give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a subscribe if you can. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot and see you next week. Bye-bye.